following takes place between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Full Press Coverage Radio Live. I am your host, Ian Glendon, and I am so happy to be back on the air after a week off. And as always, I have to welcome in my co-host. He is Mr. Rhode Island. He stands about 5'9", weighing 175 pounds, and I'm just guessing because I have no idea what his actual dimensions are, but he is Mr. Mike Debate. Mike, how are we doing today?
Actually, that was pretty accurate.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That wasn't too bad. That was actually pretty accurate. So I thank you for that. But no, all kidding aside, it's great to be back. A week off, a couple of unexpected days off. We appreciate our listeners. We appreciate you guys being patient with us. But we're back to bring it, and we've got 3 days left in the week, and you know Ian and I will definitely do that.
All I can say is about being back on the air.
Finally!
That's right, finally. No, I obviously Thanksgiving was last week, and we had a couple scheduled days off, and then a couple unscheduled days off. So, you know, it made sense to pick it up right where we left off last week on a Wednesday. So we had a nice full week off, recharge, refresh, ready to go. A lot of things to talk about. Actually, too many things, to be honest. I mean, we might have to do a 6-hour show today, but unfortunately, we do have other things to do. But again, if you're listening, welcome back. We're happy to have you. It is live. It is December. That's right. I had to check my calendar a few times. It is December the 4th. I still almost screwed that up, and it's sitting here right in front of me. Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, and I mean, we're gonna focus 100% on the NFL because Mondays is our usual general reaction day. Tuesday, we react to Monday Night Football. But since we weren't on the air Monday or Tuesday, or Friday for that matter, because we had the Thursday night games, we have a lot of football to talk about. So
yeah, we absolutely truly do. I mean, there's no question about it. The NFL action-packed, a lot happening, a lot of movement up and down in the power rankings, a lot of movement up and down in the playoff seeding, believe it or not. Who was a 1 seed is now a 5, and it's absolutely amazing to me how things can change in the blink of an eye. So, yeah, let's get to it, my friend. A lot to talk about.
Come on. Let's get nuts!
that's right. Let's get nuts here. Okay, so
That's right. Let's get nuts.
So a little housekeeping here. You know, in terms of NFL news and notes, Gardner Minshew has regained the reins of the starting quarterback position in Jacksonville. Anyone who was watching Sunday know that he came in relief of Nick Foles, who look, his Jaguar, if this is it for his Jaguars starting career, after signing a 4-year, $88 million contract in the offseason, he accounts for 4 losses, 0-4, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Very lackluster. It's unfortunate how obviously he got injured after, you know, his first touchdown pass in the first game. He broke his or fractured his clavicle or broke his clavicle, something like that. And obviously he missed a chunk of time in the middle of the season. But in that time, Gardner Minshew 4-4, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, nearly 2,500 yards. So once again, it looks like a 6th-round quarterback has unseated a nearly $100 million franchise quarterback. Thoughts on that?
Well, surprising a little bit when it comes to Foles. I really, thought that he was a very good fit for what the Jaguars wanted to do offensively, and I expected them to be a lot better this year under Nick Foles. Obviously, injuries play into that. You can't deny that, but maybe it just wasn't the fit that everybody thought it was. Either that or maybe Foles isn't quite the quarterback that we thought he was. So there's a lot going on there in Jacksonville. I do think they made the right call in going to Minshew. I think there's obviously something there. They can develop him. They can see him making strides each and every start and coming out to be able to eventually be the starting quarterback full time in that team. I know he's got the title right now. I know they've officially given it to him, but I think now knowing that next year they're going to be hitching their wagon to Gardner Minshew, I think that's going to be able to make him a little bit better, and he can work on being the starting quarterback of this team. So all in all, I think a good move for Jacksonville. Obviously, the team's not going anywhere this year, but I think the move that probably they wanted to make, they had to make, and we'll see what happens to Foles now. That's going to be a very interesting offseason in Jacksonville, because that's a freshly signed big contract that not a lot of teams are going to want to take on.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I guess I'll ask you. I mean, what team would take him? Because really, I mean, if you're the Jaguars, you can't just cut him, because I don't have the actual the structure in front of me, but I think they can't really get out from under this contract until like 2021 at the earliest. Like legitimately get out from it without having long-term ramifications. I mean, we're talking about a team that traded Jalen Ramsey because they didn't want to pay him. Now they're paying a backup quarterback $88 million. So you can kind of see how things come at you pretty quickly. But where could he go? I mean, right off the bat, you think, oh, okay, maybe Chicago, maybe this, but you know, are you going to move on from a first round pick to put Nick Foles in there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that have to be involved. First of all, you have to take a look at the teams that have the cap space. And right now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, much like yourself. I don't have the cap numbers. But at that point, and I don't even know what the cap hit would be if they decided to cut Nick Foles. My understanding is exactly what you've been saying, is that the only way they would be able to get out of that contract would be 2021 at the earliest. That's generally how these deals are structured. So if you cut him, you take an enormous cap hit that decimates your ability to bring in free agent talent. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a really, really strong rebuild. And I know there's already rumblings about Doug Marrone being on the hot seat and probably being ousted at the end of the season for Jacksonville. Keep a sharp eye on that, because that may tell you a lot about what's going on with the Jaguars and what type of build that they're looking for. And it's amazing. Just 2 or 3 years ago, they were talking about this team as the next big thing in the AFC, the next juggernaut that was capable of toppling the Patriots in the conference. And now things have drastically changed in Jacksonville. So in terms of who might take him, it would have to be a team that has the cap space to do it. I'm not aware of that many teams that have that kind of cap space that could take that hit. Indianapolis, I guess, could, but I think they're pretty well set. I don't think they'd be moving on from Jacoby Brissett to take on a guy like Nick Foles. So I don't think they're in the market for it. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it would be an upgrade at all. I think they're better off with Jacoby on this team the way they're going right now, especially the way Frank Reich runs things. Of course, there's the synergy between Reich and Foles. I saw somebody tweet that out yesterday and said, "Oh, well, it worked in Philadelphia. Maybe it could work again."
I mean,
there's
good point.
It's a valid, it is. I mean, there's definitely things there. So you never know how these things are going to shake out, but I do believe that at this point, it looks like Foles has taken his last snap in Jacksonville. I can't imagine that team is going to want to go into next season paying $88 million to a backup quarterback, like you just said.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, especially for a team that really doesn't have a direction right now.
But,
right. Hey, at least they got their option at quarterback. You know, at least they're not going out there in addition to trying to find their quarterback, because clearly. Gardner Minshew looks like at least the short-term solution, and hopefully he continues to develop moving forward. One guy that will no longer be standing on the sidelines for Carolina, which kind of came as a little bit of a shock, was yesterday Ron Rivera got fired. And I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as a lot of people. I think everyone felt like he was a good coach, a really good person, and all that stuff. I mean, every account of him, outside of football, is positive, very glowing, and deservedly so. So obviously you feel for the human aspect of it all. But look, this Carolina team was kind of treading water, and it has been for several years now, ever since they went to the Super Bowl. They're obviously not going anywhere this year. They're going to have huge issues at the quarterback position. I am kind of shocked that they fired him now. I thought maybe this might be an off-season thing where they decided to, move on. essentially decide that, okay, we're going to move on from Cam Newton or Ron Rivera or both and just kind of find a new direction for this team. And clearly they started with the coach, and the possibility that the quarterback could be out the door is still looming. So I think he's immediately becomes top candidate for any team out there that needs a coach. I'm looking at Cleveland. Cleveland in particular, I think would be perfect for him. He is a defensive-minded coach who brings accountability and discipline, and certainly could rein in some of the personalities that are in that locker room. Now, this is another topic maybe for later in the show, but I saw a tweet last night seeing that Odell Beckham Jr. apparently has already gone the route of trying to request his way out of Cleveland. Now, I don't want to put too much stock into this tweet because, again, it's the source is it's fairly accurate, but again, you got to take all these things with a grain of salt. But you can see how that makes sense. So for the Browns, I think Freddie Kitchens, I'm surprised wasn't the first coach fired. I think he should have been fired yesterday, not Ron Rivera. But it might just be a blessing in disguise for Cleveland, because I think he would be a really good option for that team. Get someone else in to run the offense and let him focus on building that team and culture.
Yeah, I think that's a very good fit for him as well. The hot name that you're hearing that's connected with Ron Rivera right now is Dallas. Everybody seems to believe that Jason Garrett is going to be ousted at the end of the season. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point, and I do believe that they are going to show strong interest in Rivera. Now, if they do that, and you take a look at the pedigree that comes with coaching the Dallas Cowboys, it looks to be a hand-in-glove fit. There's a couple of different things there. Dallas is pretty set offensively. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but this is their strength of their team. They've got a very good running game. They've got a quarterback with a lot of different versatility when it comes to either being able to throw the ball or win the ball with, or extend drives with his legs. They've got solid position players, so I think they're pretty well set. Their defense, I think, needs to be a little bit more shored up, and I think that's where a guy like Ron Rivera can come in and really get the most out of the talent that they have on the defense, because they do have a lot of defensive talent there. I think the problem right now is coaching in Dallas, and I'm sorry to say it. I know, some fans in Dallas like Jason Garrett. There are some that would love to see him, exiled to to the corner of the country where they never have to hear from him again. But at that point, that could be a good fit. I like your suggestion about Cleveland, though. I think in terms of logistical, I think that's the best place for him, especially with the talent in place, the mix of veterans and young players that can grow together and become a cohesive unit. Because if they come together as a team and they're able to pull that talent together towards something, Cleveland is on the cusp. They do have the talent in that locker room, assuming it all is retained and they're able to hold on to it, to make some strides next year and really be a factor. I thought they'd be much more of a factor this year. They haven't been. I think that's the direct result of coaching and a little bit of immaturity on some of the players' part, but the right coach and the right system will right that ship. So we'll see what happens, but I think Cleveland is intriguing, but don't count out Dallas either. That's definitely a possibility for Rivera after this year.
No, Dallas, excuse me, Dallas is a great option, and it might be a better option for Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera is a better. I think it benefits Cleveland more, because just look at Cleveland in general. Imagine if they were just half as 50% less undisciplined than what they are now, and I'm talking about the accumulation of penalties and just immaturity, like you said. A lot, and again, to me, a lot of that is on coaching. Just look at the coach wearing the Pittsburgh started it shirt, only to go out there and get beat by Pittsburgh and a third string quarterback. So it's to me, I think Cleveland desperately needs a guy like Ron Rivera to bring discipline to that team, because you bring discipline to that team, all of a sudden, maybe that gets you a win or two more, and all of a sudden things are looking a lot different for Cleveland. So that's how important I think that's going to be. But the whole Dallas situation is intriguing, because they're a team, again, who's on the cusp. They love Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator, so I think you're right. I don't think there's anything imminent change-wise in that sense. And, of course, you have your offensive pieces in place, assuming that they get Amari Cooper re-signed, and he has indicated that he wants to stay in Dallas. But, that'll definitely be a story for the offseason and everything like that. But look, whoever gets Ron Rivera, short of a handful of teams, are probably going to upgrade a coach. I thought his time had run out in Carolina. I was just shocked that it happened today. I thought this was the end of the season move, but um, they want to evaluate and see where they're at and do that coaching, get a jump start on that head coaching hire. So we'll see. We'll see what happens because um, I don't know, but I'm gonna actually tweet it out. So if you're not following us already, at FPC Radio Live, I'm gonna put a little poll out there. Let us know who you think, and if you're in the chat room in on Sportscaster, go ahead and let us know. Chime in. Where do you think Ron Rivera should end up? And maybe we'll be right, and we'll see how it all plays out. So, yeah, wow. I mean, we got so much to tackle here today. I'm kind of overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start, Mike.
Well, you know what? Let's do it like a Band-Aid right off. Let's start
Okay, all
off
right.
with the unpleasantries of the weekend.
That's
And,
right.
we might as well. So that way we can get this out of the way and then we can, talk about it. And at least we'll have everything else to talk about, which will allow me to shut up a little bit. But the New England Patriots dropping Sunday night game to the Houston Texans. And it amazes me the amount of people in New England, and I'm not talking about the national media because we expect this from them. I mean, I really don't expect. I mean, what can you expect from a pig but a grunt at this point?
Yeah.
But
I
I really am surprised, but I really am surprised by a lot of the vitriol in New England now being directed toward the team, toward Tom Brady. You're 10-2. This was a very good team that beat you in the Houston Texans. This is not like you went in last year and lost to a Miami team that had no business beating you. You lost to a Pittsburgh team that did not make the playoffs. People forget a lot of times that sometimes even in December, even in November, teams can have hiccups. And look, I mean, credit the Houston Texans. I thought they had a tremendous game plan. I thought they came in knowing exactly what they needed to do, and they were able to execute it. Some of that was because of, very good execution, very good coaching. Some of it was because the Patriots were still feeling the effects of a flu bug that I think really, really had much more of an effect on this game than people are
And to
giving
their
it credit
credit,
for.
none of them said use that. They were like, no, we just didn't play well. To the players, when asked
Absolutely,
about
and
it.
they won't, and you'll never hear. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the players will never use that as an excuse. They absolutely never will. But when you use your eyes, you use your common sense, and you see guys like Jamie Collins that were routinely beating even defensive, offensive linemen and skill position players to get in there, and he wasn't able to do it. Dante Hightower a couple of times he was isolated. Kyle Van Noy was isolated. So a great game plan by Houston, but ultimately the Patriots need to rebound, and they need to rebound quickly because they're facing a Kansas City Chiefs team that is starting to round into the type of team we might have thought they were going to be early on in the season. So this is going to be a big test for them. They're coming in at home. I don't want to say a must win for New England because it's not, but it's close to it because now they're starting to feel the breath on the back of their neck of a lot of these teams that smell blood for the first time in a long time in the AFC. So this is going to be a good one, but I credit the Houston Texans a little bit more for this than the loss to the Patriots, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But I still think when all is said and done, the Patriots are still among the top two teams in the conference.
Yeah, and look, this was as predictable as it. I mean, I think I might have even said something in the first quarter after the interception, which again I said at the time I thought it was probably not the best decision, but and we've learned obviously since then that it was an even worse route and effort from N'Keal Harry. And look, maybe that's the flu take. Maybe these guys were 75% energy wise, and that was enough to make them look the way that they did at times. But what the narrative is, what the story is. It's Tom Brady is declining and he is the reason for their struggles. And I've said it last week, I've said it the week before, and I say even more so now that he is the least of their concerns in terms of production and ability. And if anyone's followed me on Twitter the last day and a half, I've been kind of campaigning that whole thing because I've been saying for a while now, first of all, I hate the comparisons to 2009. I think that was overall Brady's worst season personally, and also I think the worst Patriots team of this 20-year run, and that includes the 9-7 2002 team. I think the 2009 team had so much talent, but for the only time in this run, they really didn't utilize that talent, and obviously it resulted in a one and done. And again, I don't think Brady had a great year that year. He had his moments, but um, coming off a major knee injury, you can expect some struggles. But so I hated that comparison to this team. I absolutely hate the comparison to the 2015 Broncos, which some of these numbskulls are using, because I said it on Twitter yesterday. It's like comparing apples to pot roast. I mean, there's no similarities to the two. My favorite comparison is the 2013 version of the New England Patriots. You don't have to look that far to figure out what kind of team that was. 2013, they lost in the AFC Championship game after a litany of offensive injuries. And I mean, look, in 2013, the Patriots lost Rob Gronkowski for the year. That was the TJ Ward hit to the knee. They were relying on guys like Aaron Dobson and Kembrell Tompkins to play key minutes and come up with key catches in key games. They were dealing with the unexpected loss of a tight end in Aaron Hernandez that year. I mean, you say what, a lot of people have kind of scrubbed him from his memory, but he was a crucial aspect of what this team did on offense, and was really growing into a huge role when obviously all that happened and he was all of a sudden not on the team anymore. So and again, I look at 2019 and I see so many parallels. Obviously no Rob Gronkowski for another reason, a litany of injuries on the offensive line, inconsistency from the wide receivers, and having to rely on a lot of young guys to come into their own during crucial moments. And again, it was not the greatest end of the season for the Patriots that year. I mean, we can all assume that, but it did end in the AFC Championship game. But the biggest point I was making from that was, and I see it all the time now, people are going directly to statistics when they be like, oh, Brady, look at Brady. Nick Wright does it all the time. He'll go up there and list off passer rating, completion percentage, and yards per attempt, the three most awfully manipulated quarterback stats if used by themselves, by the way. So it's no surprise that he does that. But he'll go off and list all these stats, and other people do it too. But he's kind of the leader of the dumb brigade. But so he goes up there and he lists all these stats as a reason why Tom Brady is declining. Well, I posted this yesterday on Twitter. It's actually got some action. Actually, my phone's still buzzing every once in a while because people have seen this. But in 2013, Brady was, the numbers were almost identical to what they were now. He's actually right now this year completing a higher percentage of his passes. And I'm stalling right now because I'm scrolling through my own Twitter just to try to find these actual numbers because they were great. But okay, here we go. All right. So 2013, 60% completion percentage, 3,267 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 88 passer rating, and a 6.9 yards per attempt. So 2019, it's got to be 10 times worse because, as we all know, he was certainly not in decline in 2013. I mean, that's obviously not even a debate. There's no, if you say otherwise, then sorry, that's wrong. 2019, he's completing 63.9% of his passes. He's throwing for 3,268, which is one full yard higher than what he did that year. 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, plus 3 rushing touchdowns, so 21 overall touchdowns versus 19, an 88.2 quarterback rating, and a 6.7 yards per attempt. So, to all those dummies out there that are saying, oh, Brady's fallen off, look at his numbers. I don't care about numbers. Look at his play. And give a shout out to Dave Latham of Last Word on Patriots. He did a great breakdown of play by play, pass by pass, even the incompletes of what Brady did. And you could see, there's so many examples of his athleticism still on par, and him being quick and decisive in the pocket. His arm strength is still there. You can question decision making at times, but again, I point right to the issues that they're having on offense and who they're throwing to. I thought live at the time, I hate the rollout play that they run in general. I hate limiting yourself to such a small part of the field. But the play itself none of that was on Brady, and a lot of us didn't see it or didn't see the breakdown until later when the coach's film comes out. But Dan Orlovsky did a great job of breaking that down, where he showed how Jacoby Myers, and I thought his footwork was bad. I thought they were aiming for that, that little Z out that we saw a couple times in that stadium in the Super Bowl with Amendola and Edelman. So obviously that entails having a very sharp cut and direct route out of your break. It wasn't quite that same route that it was supposed to be, but the same idea. Brady was thrown to the spot, which was right in front of the pylon, on the outside edge of the end zone. So what Jacoby Myers did was not only, when he was coming out of his break, he didn't take a sharp angle. He rounded his edge. And again, that split second, that delay allowed the defensive back to catch up to it. But, on the surface, people are like, oh, what a bad throw by Brady. What a terrible decision. No, it was a fantastic decision. It was a great throw. It was a bad route by the receiver. And but unfortunately, people don't want to see that. I mean, they either don't see it or they don't want to see it. So to me, I haven't seen anything physically that has told me that, oh yeah, no, Brady just isn't the same anymore. I just see personnel issues across the board, whether it's offensive line, whether it's on your third center, whether it's, losing both your fullbacks. I mean, they have a linebacker playing fullback. That's how important that position is to that team and to that running game in particular. So, I thought Brady was great. I thought the offense showed flashes. I think the biggest difference between this team and 2013 is, one, they have a better defense, and two, this year they actually do have the pieces. I'm not giving up on Keneal Harry. I'm not giving up on Jacoby Myers. I'm not giving up on these guys. It's just they have to figure it out, and the potential is there for them to figure out. In 2013, I think the Patriots were just running on fumes. So there is positives for this team. And again, if anyone wants to sit there and tell me that Brady's the biggest problem, let me know where to meet. I will fight you. So,
and he will do that.
That's
Trust
legitimate
me,
too.
I know that. I know. I absolutely. I know that from personal experience. Look, I agree with you. I think that's a great analysis, and I did see your tweet yesterday, and I absolutely loved it. And it really does show the. I think what everybody is trying to put on Brady's shoulders that shouldn't be put on his shoulders. And look, are there throws that he made in that game that haven't been his best? Yes, absolutely. Nobody is saying that there haven't been, but there's so many factors that go into quarterback play and that go into being able to complete and being able to do what you can without the weapons around you.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely difficult to do that. And I do believe he has the weapons, but they have to play up to par.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the rookies. I know Harry and Myers are getting hammered up here. Mohamed Sanu. I mean, Mohamed Sanu has to run out that. He's got to come up with catches. He had a catch in the first half that was a drop that really I think he needed to come up with. I'm sorry. I know it was maybe a rough decision to go for it on 4th and inches. And yes, all you had to do was lay down. You could get that. But let's not forget that the play worked. If Mohamed Sanu hauls in that catch, it works. And all of a sudden, it's a different, this is not 4th and 2, like from Bill Belichick when the call was made in Indianapolis and, they just didn't have a prayer and Kevin Falk just had nowhere to go. This was a play that actually
worked. It was a good play.
And it really should have been. And I think it was. I think it caught Houston on their heels. And who knows the type of momentum that could have done. You could almost see the Patriots maybe building on that, going up tempo, no huddle. They go down and score. This could be a completely different game. So those types of things have to be shored up. Bill Belichick and the coaching staff, Josh McDaniels, they're going to be working very closely on that this week. And again, they're going to need it when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll table the Patriots, I think, for a little while so that way we can get to some of the other action and we don't lose, 90% of our listeners. But no, in any case, I think it was a good win for the Texans. Tough loss for the Pats, but one they can rebound from. Keep in mind, Patriots fans, your team is still 10-2. No reason to panic just yet.
Well, and that's again, this is all kind of in a big summary. This just speaks to the what have you done for me lately mentality that's taken with some of these teams and kind of the reactionary, like, guess what, you're the leading MVP because you're the one who played last and you played on national TV type of mentality that we see a lot from national shows. And look, we react to things like that sometimes as well, so we're not immune to it, but in some cases it's gotten a little bit overboard because again, like I said, when you say and preface your argument surrounding the decline in numbers, and then you can't then okay, so if Brady's declining, then so is Patrick Mahomes because his numbers are down, and the guy hasn't thrown more than one touchdown pass in a game since he's done it once in the last like 6 weeks or something like that. So again, where's the outcry with his decline? But to another point, and we won't elaborate too much on this because I'm sure we'll save it for the preview of the Patriots Chiefs game later in this week. But this is why you don't jump to list him as the best quarterback in the league. I think you can. To me, there's a difference between having the best season and being the best quarterback in the league. I cannot for the life of me put a guy who's played 1 year in the league who wasn't able to win bigger games and B didn't win a Super Bowl as the best quarterback in the league when you still have guys like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers in there. And yes, I just complimented sorry, I didn't have my coffee this morning. You're gonna have to bear with me. I just complimented Aaron Rodgers somewhat. So yes, it is a. You heard me correct.
Mark it down, folks.
Mark it down. December the 4th.
Yep.
You'll never hear it again. But no, look, and that's kind of my point because we're looking at Patrick Mahomes now, and it's like this is something I've said all year. It's he relies very heavily on open receivers and scheming open, which tells me, okay, he's a talented quarterback that can do a lot of things, but let's pump the brakes on anointing him the best quarterback after a year because he has a lot of things he needs to work on, and it's starting to show quite a bit here in recent weeks. And, I'll be interested to see how he plays against this improved Patriots defense, who has obviously beaten him twice last year and has kind of limited him at times. But no, this team relies heavily on the 5 yards and behind passing routes and yards after catch. I mean, there's plenty of statistics to back it up. Just look at the next gen stats. You can see about 75% of his completions become from behind the 5 yard line and the line of scrimmage and all that. So that's not to say that he doesn't have a great deep ball and all that, but people seem to equate the high passing yard numbers to a lot of deep balls, and that's just not the case. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Patriots game plan for Kansas City, and if Patrick Mahomes continues to be a mere mortal among men as opposed to a demagogue as he has been portrayed over the last 8-9 months or so. So that's going to be interesting.
No, it's true. You know what? And this is true with any athlete. This is true with any quarterback. Statistics set the table, folks, but they don't tell the entire story. They don't serve the meal. And that's, I think, what people need to remember when it comes to that. Take a look objectively at what these statistics say. Don't just cherry pick numbers, pick something off of Pro Football Focus and go, oh, this is it. That's the reason why he's great. That's the reason why Brady sucks. It's not like that. I think you need to take a level-headed approach. Listen to my friend here. He knows what he's talking about, and he does a great job with being able to do that and talk people off the ledge. I would say that you do. I really would, and that's not because I'm contractually obligated to compliment you at least 5 times during the show, but it's really
actually
is
6 times.
Something
oh no, I'm sorry.
That
starts in January. Never mind. You're good. 5 times is enough.
Oh no. I didn't think that clause kicked in yet. I thought I still had just the 5.
It was the Santa clause.
So just the 5, right now. So yep. And then after that, we'll be in the pursuit of 7. We'll be like New England.
That's
just
right.
Keep going for it and going for it. Yep.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you one team.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was
going to say I will tell you one team that right now is no longer chasing New England. They've unseated them as the number 1 seed in the AFC, and that is the Baltimore Ravens, and they continue to impress week after week, my friend.
Yes, and this is version 3.0 of the Jacksonville Jaguars, like you mentioned earlier in the show. The next team that's going to run wild. I mean, obviously last year is Kansas City, and this year is Baltimore. Look, I'm not, it's a little slight. It's not a big deal. Look, they're the best team right now. I mean, in the AFC, they're the hottest team. They've beaten the Patriots, which, like I said, and I give a lot of teams credit. I told y'all about. I said earlier in the year I will give Houston credit when they beat them in the playoffs, or the Patriots in the playoffs. I give them some credit now, obviously, for beating them, but again, I need to see them do it to actually really believe in the Houston Texans. But the Ravens, look, they're playing great football right now. They're getting great quarterback play. obviously the flavor of the NFL right now. I mean, everyone loves Baltimore. They're the new niche thing, but let's see how it goes. I mean, they got some tough tests, and when it comes down to it, let's see if they can beat these really good teams in the playoffs because we know how it is. But getting home field advantage is going to be huge for that team, and they obviously control their own destiny, but it's certainly not an easy route for them. Nor is it for the Patriots. I mean, well, maybe after Kansas City, but even so, you throw in Buffalo and. That's going to be two out of 4 remaining games are going to be pretty tough for the Patriots. So, and they really can't afford to lose another game if you want the number 1 seed. So, Baltimore, what can you say? I mean, that was a great game against San Francisco. I'm not going to sit here and call it game of the year, but it was thoroughly entertaining between 2 of the best teams in the league, and that was a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. It really and truly was. And, it was one of those old-fashioned trench games that teams win and they gut out. Terrible weather, 2 teams going back and forth, really hitting themselves head on head. And credit the Baltimore Ravens. They made more plays. They were able to get the job done. And a lot of people are saying this is a precursor to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in the national media will tell you, "Oh, this is absolutely a Super Bowl preview. No one's going to touch either one of these teams." And then Seattle wins, and all of a sudden things are a little bit different on Monday night, and they're able to move forward. And now all of a sudden the San Francisco 49ers are a 5 seed, and some people are even saying there's a path to them possibly even missing the playoffs if they sputter down the stretch. And I do not believe that at all. But technically, there's a mathematical possibility. That goes to show you just how good the NFC is this year in terms of teams and being evenly matched. Just amazing, really, really amazing what a couple of days can do to the power rankings and the standings. But I think this was a great game between 2 great teams, and I continue to be impressed by what Baltimore is doing. They're playing well on offense. They're playing much better on defense. Week after week, we see improvements in that defense, and they're getting healthy on defense, which is something that they weren't in the first half of the season. So this Ravens team is for real, and they're going to be an obstacle. If you're a New England Patriots fan or you're a Buffalo Bills fan, and you're looking at these teams that are possible threats, Kansas City Chiefs as well, you have to look at the Baltimore Ravens and say that's the team that we've got to put our bullseye on right now and really game plan to try to be able to beat them, because they're going to be tough to beat in this postseason. They're built well to last into the playoffs.
Well, and look, we're going to get a good idea of both what they are, more so what they are, and of Buffalo this week, because they go head to head, which is something we'll get to later in the week when we preview Week 14. But that's going to be a great matchup. And look, again, we get this every year. There's always a team that kind of comes out of nowhere. Not necessarily nowhere, but at least they weren't expected to do as well, and they become the hot button topic. So, like you said, I mean, last year everyone thought that the Rams and Chiefs game was the precursor to the preview of the Super Bowl, and obviously that was not the case. It was half right, and it was almost right, and it certainly could be the case this year where San Francisco ends up. Go back to 2013. It's funny how that works out. 2013 January when or February, I'm sorry, when Baltimore and San Francisco met in that pretty epic Super Bowl. But once again, though, San Francisco has a chance to make some noise because this week they play the Saints. I almost said Seattle. No, they play the Saints. So who are also 10-2. So a win over the Saints and a Seattle loss or tie, all of a sudden they're going right back up to the top because the number 1 seed right now is the Saints. So it's going to be a wild finish in December in the NFC. And I don't know. I'll put you on the spot. What's your gut say? Who do you think is going to ultimately have that number 1 seed in the NFC?
In the NFC, I still believe it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I know a lot of people are saying, I've seen articles and tweets coming out that now they believe that the Seattle Seahawks may be the best complete team in the NFC. And look, I'm a fan of the Seahawks. I would like to see them be able to succeed because I just love the way they do, business on both sides of the ball. But I still think the 49ers defense is enough to carry them. I still think they have enough weapons on offense to be able to be effective and be able to even be better than they have been. Look, George Kittle's going to start to get healthier. Matt Breida is going to start to get healthier. These guys are capable of making plays, and they're capable of giving this offense a little bit more than what we've seen. Emmanuel Sanders, I think, is a key factor in how they're going to be able to do offensively. So I would still say that the San Francisco 49ers are the class of the AFC, despite the seedings right now. The New Orleans Saints are a team that I've been very high on since the beginning of the season. They were my Super Bowl pick early on this year. I'm not saying that I've wavered on my Super Bowl pick, but in terms of being the number one seed, I still think the 49ers are going to be able to pull that out. I think they right the ship after this move, after this loss. It wasn't a devastating loss. It wasn't a demoralizing or humiliating loss. They hung in there with the Baltimore Ravens. And one thing I don't think a lot of people are talking about is they laid a little bit of a blueprint on how teams might be able to stop or contain Lamar Jackson. Not a lot of people are talking about this. It's not the quote unquote sexy thing to talk about on morning sports talk, but you know what? We're going to bring it up because I think it's very interesting to see by stacking the box and having that formidable front seven of the 49ers and the linebackers being able to drop into coverage a little bit. That gave Lamar a little bit of problem, and he wasn't able to run as freely and wild as we've seen him run before. Now, Baltimore fans are going to tell you that was because of the weather. I think the weather was part of it, but I also think you got to give credit to that San Francisco defense for devising a scheme that kept this game pretty close.
Well, we saw it for a brief stretch in that Patriots Ravens game. We saw the Patriots do that once
Absolutely.
they adjusted, and we saw, okay, these passes weren't quite as complete and all that stuff. And, so there is a potential. But, for the 49ers, it's like, let's not forget, this week against the Saints wraps up a pretty brutal stretch for them. They started with a 5-game stretch here against Seattle, where they lost in overtime by a field goal, and we all remember that game. That was they could have won that game with a field goal of their own. They played a divisional rival in the Cardinals. They whooped the Packers. Then they played the Ravens and only lost by 3. So and now again they're playing the Saints. So you're talking about 3-4 of the best teams in the league, not just the conference. In the last 4 or 5 weeks. So this has been a hell of a stretch for the 49ers, and I think it's really what they say, iron sharpens iron. This is really sharpening, in my opinion, what they are as a team, and I think it's going to bode well in the long run, because eventually this is what you use to build off of and make those runs to the Super Bowl. So I'm still going to say they have they're going to come away with the top seed as well, even though they are technically the 5th seed right now, which yeah, which would buy you a date, with like the Packers or possibly the Saints, or who knows. I mean, just the way this conference is, who knows how it's ultimately going to, it could literally flip flop from what it is now, and it wouldn't shock me.
Absolutely. No, it's true. And that goes to show you the parity right now that is in the league. I think for the first time in a long while, we're seeing that. Even in the AFC, we're seeing teams that now can make challenges, and they can make attempts to be able to contend for division titles and conference titles, where maybe not a lot of teams had that opportunity before. So I think this is it's going to be an interesting end of the season. December may be a very, very telltale month. If you're a football fan, especially if you're an NFL fan, definitely keep a sharp eye on all of the games, because there's going to be a lot of great football being played, and there's going to be a lot of seesaw matchups back and forth that can really propel a team into a great playoff seeding, and maybe one team that doesn't get as high as they had hoped. So always good and always fun.
Yeah, and look, there's still intrigue in the AFC as well, just a little bit less so. I think, for the most part, the Patriots, Ravens, those two teams are going to get the top 2 seeds. There's a 2-game separation between them, the Texans and the Chiefs. So, you're talking about 3-4 seed wild card weekend teams, division winners right there. And then, assuming there's not some epic collapse here in the last month, the Buffalo Bills are probably going to get that first wild card spot at 9-3. There's no one really close, and then you kind of have a logjam there for the 6th spot. So right now the Steelers at 7-5 are leading that. The Titans with Ryan Tannehill are right on their heels, and the Raiders at 6-6, Colts at 6-6, and even the Browns at 5-7 are still in the mix. But if you listen to our conversation earlier about the Browns, I don't think any of us give them a snowball's chance in hell to turn things around at this point. I think it's a lost cause, and they should probably start thinking long term about the future and get rid of Freddie Kitchens and maybe get a head start on the Ron Rivera hire. But we'll see. Another name, someone tweeted on our poll at FPC Radio Live that the Giants might be an option. So that'll be interesting as well to see how that plays out. So yeah, I mean, the AFC's got its intrigue as well. I don't think as much as the NFC, just because you have so many good teams in that conference that really, like you said, the 5th or the 6th seed right now could, well, actually, Dallas is the only thing, or the NFC East is the only thing that's not like the other. So 5 of the 6 teams in the conference can legitimately seize that top spot, or are within a game of that top spot. So that's pretty wild, and makes for an interesting last month of 2019.
Absolutely. It truly, really, truly does. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. We're going to be talking about it a lot here on FPC Radio Live. So, yeah, keep a sharp eye, as I like to say, folks. It's always going to be fun, and the NFL will deliver in this latter half of the season.
So I want to give credit to myself, most importantly, and our colleagues Terry Biggs and Brandon Ray, because the three of us on Full Press NFL Sunday kickoff, 10 a.m. on Sportscaster, of course. If you don't know, you can tune in and watch us talk about football like we do every Sunday. We all picked the Bengals to beat the Jets, and they came through. The Red Rifle came through, and the Bengals picked up their first win of the season over the Jets. And boy, oh boy, is it just, I mean, all you need is a Manish Mehta tweet about Sam Darnold being the best quarterback in the AFC East, and something like this was going to happen, especially to a winless team.
Absolutely.
And, look, I'm not knocking Sam Darnold. I'm not knocking that. I think their biggest issue is clearly Adam Gase. Look at Miami. Look at where they are at culture-wise. I mean, to me, it's a complete 180. And again, this is another instance where I'm going to give us both credit, because we've been saying all year, look, don't give up on Brian Flores. Don't, despite how it looks, they got steamrolled 59-0 the first game of the season. Like, don't give up on Brian Flores. And let me tell you, the Miami Dolphins are in a good spot right now. Now, again, there's so many things that have to go right. They have to hit on these draft picks, or, all this goodwill will be out the door, and, they'll be still behind where they're at. But they've turned that team around culture wise, and I think it speaks volumes to what Brian Flores did, and even more volumes about what Adam Gase was, because not only is Miami better, but Ryan Tannehill's better too. He's at a different team, playing really good quarterback, and Adam Gase is a guy that was touted as a quarterback whisperer, when in fact all he was just a guy who rode the coattails of Peyton Manning and a stacked offense. So I think he's getting even more so exposed than what he has been in the past as a mediocre at best coach. And if I were the Jets, I'd move on from him, but it's the Jets, so they'd probably give him a contract extension. So we'll see. But look, I was happy to see the Jets lose.
Well, I'm always happy to see the Jets lose, but I mean, who said that? I shouldn't have said that. I'm supposed to be objective. I really,
Not on this
really
show.
am.
Not on this show.
I'm supposed to be objective. I'm supposed to be a very, very respected journalist in this realm, and the damn Jets. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, but they've gone on record by saying that Adam Gase is their guy, and he's going to continue to be their guy next year. Now, who knows? This is the Jets.
That's why they're going to be 4-12 again.
Exactly. But they also may change their mind, in 5 minutes, and he may get fired by the end of the day. We don't know. But ultimately, that is, I think, a big part of why this team is struggling. You see flashes of talent. And for all the stuff that I give the Jets, there's talent on both sides of the ball on that team. I think the problem is up top, and I think the problem is coaching. And whether they recognize that or not is going to be something that could come back to bite them or to haunt them. So, again, we'll always keep our eyes out to see what they're going to do. But I don't see a tremendously bright future in New York, especially with the fact that the Patriots are still the class of that division. But the Buffalo Bills are playing great football right now. They are playing great football. And the Dolphins will continue to get better. And, that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up. And I'm so happy for Brian Flores. And it's tough for me to say that I actually am pulling for the Dolphins at times because of the rivalry with the Patriots. But I mean, Brian Flores, I think, has done a tremendous job of trying to keep that team together, string wins together, and create some excitement on a team that has a very bright future. They've got a lot of draft capital coming up. They've got a lot of they're going to have some cap space coming up to be able to utilize. It's still a very attractive, area to play in. I mean, what football player would not want to go and say, I'm going to call Miami my home this year? Yeah. I mean, there are worse places that you could go, believe me. So he's building a great culture down there, and credit to Brian Flores for not giving up, not losing sight of the big picture, but also living in the present, because it would have been very easy for this team to fold and go 0-16. They didn't do that. They're still in a good position to get some, some great draft capital, but they're also in a position to let people know and say, see, maybe not as far away as you think we are.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I want to bring this up because I don't think it's been mentioned before, and if it hasn't, I want full credit. Anyone has, but who's laughing now? Akeem Talib or the Los Angeles Rams? Because I think everyone thought like, how could you do Akeem Talib so wrong? Why would you send him to a Miami team? Blah blah blah. I almost say the Miami Dolphins are have a much better outlook, in my opinion, than the Los Angeles Rams right now. I think the Rams are just struggling to stay afloat, and it's not going to get better for them because of the amount of money that they've just committed to just a handful of players. It's I think we all saw it a couple years ago when they started to do this, that they had a very short window. They missed that window, in my opinion, because I don't think they're going to recover from what they are now. And look, I think Aqib Talib's going to a team that is going to be on the rise. Now, again, I reiterate, there's a lot that has to happen for Miami to get things right. I mean, and a lot of it has to do with hitting on these draft picks, whether it's the selections or using those draft picks to bring in other players. But they have to hit on those to keep this moving forward. But right now, as it stands, if you're going to ask me who I think is going to be a better team over the next couple of years, I'd say Miami, because what are the Rams going to do? You know, they're saddled with a guy, Jared Goff, who I'll give him credit, had a good game this week, but has shown over a pretty long stretch of time that he seems to be more or less just a mediocre quarterback who needs a top end running game to really get things moving. And I don't think Todd Gurley is going to, Benjamin Button it and all of a sudden become what he was 3 or 4 years ago. So
Right.
So to me, I like what the Dolphins are doing. I mean, look, they beat the Eagles, and that's obviously that's like watching the Jets lose. I like and enjoy the Eagles losing. So I apologize to some of the people we work with over at DSGN Tree there. There are a lot of Eagles guys over there, so they provide our great T-shirts and stuff like that. And I know some of them are a little bummed out this week because of how the Eagles are playing, but yeah, look, again, I hats off to Brian Flores. Good win for them this week, and hey, let's see how they build this, because I won't root for them, especially if they start to get better. But somewhere in my heart, I'll always appreciate Brian Flores.
Yeah, you always have to. And look, it's funny. I know you bring up the Eagles. Hey, look, some of my favorite people in the world are Eagles fans, so we won't go there
Oh,
too
same
much.
here.
But you
Same
know what?
here.
Yeah, but you know what? It is a good thing if you're a Patriots fan to look at a guy like Brian Flores and see the success that he looks like he's on the cusp of having. And look, we've seen a lot of players. We've seen players. We've seen coaches up here in New England go off, maybe rattle off a pretty good season. We saw Josh McDaniels do it in Denver, and then all of a sudden it fell apart. So you just hope that he can sustain it. And I think this team is well suited to be able to do it. But that was, it was a great win for them, and there's no question about that.
Well, before
really,
I was
really quickly here,
I
I
was going
think
to say,
that
hold on.
there's
I was
still
going to say the one big difference, and I think between Brian Flores and someone like Josh McDaniels and some of these other guys is those guys got off to hot starts. Right out of the gate, they won a bunch of games, which, look at Sean McVay. It gives you so much street cred, whether or not you deserve it. I'm not saying Sean McVay doesn't, but once things started to settle, you kind of come back to the norm. Whereas in Brian Flores' case, he obviously did not shoot straight out of a cannon. In fact, it was the exact opposite, and he slowly built this culture, and look, they rewarded a guy like Eric Rowe with a 3-year contract. That's a great move for them. To build
he's been
this,
excellent since moving to safety.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is and this speaks volumes to me when you can get a team that, I mean, right off the bat traded so many of their skill players, and you're still getting guys that on a team that had very few wins buying into what he was preaching and doing it on the field. So that to me is the biggest difference, and why I think Brian Flores is really building a solid foundation for perhaps a pretty long career as the Dolphins head coach.
Yeah, and I would hope so as well. And it'll definitely be good, to see him succeed. It'll also be good for the rivalry, and it'll be good to bring
Yes.
a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of credibility to the cesspool that is the AFC East, despite having two of the top teams in the conference.
Doesn't
I think,
matter.
that's just, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a garbage division. That's why
Yeah,
everybody
tomato
wins.
cans.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Oh
Oh
yeah.
man.
Yep.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know you were gearing up to say something, so I'll give you the floor.
No,
Let's
no, no,
go.
no, no. That was it. No, actually,
Oh, okay, okay.
that was it. I said no. I said really, really quickly, just going through the gauntlet of things that we learned this past week as well. The Buffalo Bills is a team that I just wanted to give a little bit. We had mentioned them a little. I just wanted to give them a little bit of well-deserved kudos. I think they're playing at a pretty good level, and they're starting to peak at the right time. Josh Allen has come into his own. I thought he had a very good game against the Cowboys. So this game in a couple of weeks for Patriots fans is going to be very interesting. I know Bills fans are already gearing up for it. They're already, chugging away, and they're already taking a victory lap after the Texans lost the other night, stating that, there's a chance we're going to win the division. Well, I got news for you, folks. It's kind of a Lloyd Christmas chance, but, stranger things have happened, so I'm not going to put myself out there on that. I still don't think that's too likely. I still think the Patriots take the division, but credit the Buffalo Bills. They've done a great job of sputtering a little bit early, but rebounding and not showing that same second half of the season swoon that's plagued them over the last couple of years. That culture is changing, and they've got talent on both sides of the ball. That's going to be a tough playoff team when you have to match up with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine. That's why I'm very intrigued to see what this Ravens Bills game. So I guess this is a, a Sophie's Choice type of thing. Who would you rather win that game? I mean,
can we choose the apocalypse? And no, I'm just kidding. No, no, honestly, I mean, it's tough. I think that at this point, you almost have to go with the Bills, and that sounds blasphemous to go with a team within the division. But when you're trying to win the top seed in the conference, especially if the Patriots can pull this out against the Chiefs, you have to want the first round bye, and you have to want home field throughout. The Patriots in Gillette, that's not to say that they can't win on the road, because they can. I went into that on Locked On Patriots this week, and some of the stupid asinine comments that were made about the Patriots never being able to win a road playoff game. How quickly we forget that they did that last year, but whatever.
You're lucky we only have 3 minutes left.
Exactly. If you're the Pats, I think you want the Ravens to lose this game, because it strengthens your ability to be able to get home field and be able to get that first round bye. So I take the lesser of two evils. They still have a head-to-head with the Bills as well, where they can create distance. I say you want the Bills over the Ravens this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it does seem blasphemous, but at the same time, it's like, you think of it logically. It's like, yeah, you do have the Bills again, and you lost to the Ravens, so you definitely need to gain that game if you want the home field advantage. But at the end of the day, if they're the second seed, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, because despite what Bart Scott said, and I'm going to bring it up, they did play 3 road games en route to the Super Bowl victories in their run, including last year. So in that sense, I think it's what Bart Scott said was obviously beyond idiotic. I mean, I questioned yesterday whether or not that show has any sort of fact checkers at all. But the worst part about all that was that Nick Wright didn't even correct him. That's the worst part, because
I said
know
earlier,
damn well.
I said earlier, what do you expect from a pig but a grunt? I mean,
exactly.
Come on, that's like, really.
But look, I mean, that speaks to the bigger issue when it comes to. I think some of these shows are just. It's just, to me, it's a bit pathetic in my eyes, in my view, and he kind of epitomizes that in my point of view, and I will constantly harp on that, especially when, again, you're sitting there hosting, that's your show, and someone gets up there and says something so completely idiotic. I mean, like literally just a simple check, like, oh, hey, within the last calendar year, within the last like 365 days, they in fact went on the road against the number 1 seed and beat them en route to the Super Bowl. So that's just foolish. So, hey, it's been a good day. Glad to be back, man. It was a long week, let me tell you. My ego was hurting a little bit because no one was listening to me speak. So I'm glad to be back on the air. So
it's always a pleasure to be back on the air with you, my friend. I'm glad that we were able to hit the airwaves. We will continue to do that each and every day as much as we can. And, we enjoy it. It's always fun.
Absolutely. And so in that sense, Stay tuned. We got Snowman in the Morning coming up at 9 a.m. We will be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. bright and early on Sportscaster and Full Press Radio. Give the show a follow. It's at FPC Radio Live. I am at IGLEN31, and he is at MDABATE. Guys, have a great Wednesday. Enjoy Hump Day, and get ready for a great last month of the season because it's going to be a lot of fireworks. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you in the morning.